I just finished my 65th book. The week before I turned 65, which is kind of sad. I did that in May. I finished it. It's how to get all teachers to be like the best, to become like the best teachers. Because I've realized that's the only solution to education. It is. Think about Virginia. In every school in Virginia, even in the pointy part, in every school in Virginia, you have at least one teacher that's cracked the Da Vinci Code. Isn't it amazing? How many of you have at least one teacher that's cracked the, they've figured it out? We don't need to innovate, we need to replicate. And you got it right there. And what happens with the highly effective people, what's really interesting is they can become outcasts because what they do is they take away everybody else's excuses. Because you know what they do? They teach the same kids as everybody else, in the same school with everybody else, with the same budget and everybody else, and the same principal as everybody else, and the same community as everybody else, and the same superintendent as everybody else, and the same governor as everybody else, and the same state board of education. They kind of ruin it for everybody else, don't they? Because they make a difference where other people pretend it's kids nowadays or it's some other excuse that makes them ineffective. And it really is, how can we replicate that? And that's what we're going to focus on today. But I want us to realize something and how important our teachers are. I'm assuming you all went virtual overnight a few years ago during the pandemic. Is that correct? That was really hard, wasn't it? And you know what made it so hard? We didn't have a dress rehearsal. We just went to opening night. That made it really hard. If you could have practiced it for a week, it would have been better. But nobody got to practice it. You just, all of a sudden, we're doing virtual. But I got a question for you. With no practice whatsoever, how many of you could name 3 teachers that you knew were going to figure it out? Okay? With no practice whatsoever, how many of you could name 3 teachers you knew were never going to figure it out? And how many of you realized when we came back in person, the 3 teachers that couldn't figure out virtual haven't figured out in person either? I mean, I'm just asking that right there. And you know how come? Because it's the exact same skill set. We like to think things are different skill sets, they're the same skill sets. I'm just letting you know that. Do you know why there's average principals? Because an average superintendent hired an average teacher to become an average principal. Can I tell you a secret? No great teacher is ever going to be an average principal. They're not going to allow that to happen. There's no chance that's going to happen. And if they decided to run a convenience store, it'd be the best dang convenience store in Virginia. If they ran a McDonald's, it'd be the best McDonald's in Virginia. If they became a realtor, they'd become the best realtor in Virginia. Because it's the same skill set. And what I've learned is in your school, you have people that have that same skill set. And you know what you're going to do? Figure out how to get everybody else to have that same skill set. Does that make any sense? And that's what we got to do. That's how we're going to improve our schools. It makes our jobs easier. It makes our lives easier. I'll give you a couple more examples here. How many of y'all are familiar with flexible seating? Big trend in education. How many of you know at least one highly effective teacher that would be highly effective using flexible seating? Okay? How many of you know at least one highly effective teacher that would be highly effective not using flexible seating? How many of you know at least one ineffective teacher that would be ineffective using flexible seating? How many of you know at least one ineffective teacher that would be ineffective not using flexible seating? What is not the variable? Flexible seating. What is always the variable? Then how come schools mandate flexible seating and how come schools outlaw flexible seating? Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever seen? They're never the problem, they're never the solution. Isn't it amazing how great teachers can make anything work out and ineffective teachers can't make anything work out? And that's how come we got to get everybody to be like the best teachers. Because otherwise we're going to have stuff that's never going to work out. And understand, I'm not a proponent of flexible seating and I'm not an opponent of flexible seating. You know why? Because I know it doesn't make any difference because I ask myself that one question and then I'm never going to be stuck on stuff like that again, ever again. But if I have a teacher that's juiced up about flexible seating, I'll do everything in my power to support him or her using flexible seating. Because if they're more excited about teaching, the kids are going to be more excited about learning. But if I jam down the throat of a highly effective teacher flexible seating, they're going to be less excited about teaching and the kids are going to be less excited about learning. Does that make any sense? I was recently in the state of Mississippi. I was talking about 2,000 principals. And one of the things I love to do, I love to go around and glad hand, especially pre-pandemic. And when I go around and glad hand, I don't know if y'all knew this or not, I'm actually not trying to make relationships, I'm actually trying to find the smartest people in the room. And I apologize if I skipped your table. But anyhow, and the reason is you can't learn how to be great from average people because average people don't know how to be great. Didn't know if y'all knew that or not. If average people could be great, guess what they'd be? They'd be great because it's a lot more fun to be great than it is to be average. And what's interesting is, I've learned is you just have to think like great people think. Well, anyhow, I was in Mississippi walking around and I was trying to find the smartest principal in the state of Mississippi. And I was walking around and they were people like you except you all are better looking. There were people like you. And anyhow, I found a table of 4 outstanding people. And I thought one of these principals right here is the best principal in Mississippi. And I go, it's this lady right here. And the day was on Leading School Change, one of my books. I'm not a book salesman. I couldn't care less if you never buy a book. It doesn't bother me. I couldn't care less if you buy a book, Xerox it for everybody, and mail it back. It doesn't bother me. My publisher cares. I don't care. Your librarian might care. I don't care. That's not why I write books. I didn't know if y'all know. You know why I write books? So people know exactly what to do. I don't want you to guess. I want you to know exactly what to do. You read Dealing with Difficult Parents, guess what you know? Exactly what to do, exactly where to sit, exactly how to start, exactly how to end. What to say if they say this, what to say if they say this, what to say if they say this, what to say if they say this. Because you know what? If you don't know that, you can't teach your teachers that. And if you can't teach your teachers that, you're going to have teachers that phone calls blow up and now they're scared of parents. And in your school, you have ineffective people that want everyone to never call parents. Am I correct? Your worst teacher's goal isn't to become the best teacher. Your worst teacher's goal is to become the second worst teacher. I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. And they do it not by improving. They do it by getting somebody else to come down. That's what they're doing. Aren't they whispering all the time? We don't call parents around here. We just email parents around here. We don't call parents around here. And if you don't whisper louder than they whisper, people start to believe their whisper because that's the only whisper they hear. And the day was on leading school change. And I found the best principal in Mississippi, and I said, what's a goal you have that you'd like to change? She goes, my goal is every kid leave home excited about learning. What do y'all think of that goal? Oh, man, I tear up when I hear it. Every kid leave home excited about learning. I said, that's beautiful. I go, but I hate to tell you this, that's not a goal, that's a wish. She goes, I don't understand. See, I said a goal is something you can influence. A wish is something you need to drop pixie dust on to influence. She said, I don't understand. I go, are you married? She goes, yes, I am. I go, let me tell you the difference between a goal and a wish. A goal is you'd like to lose 10 pounds. A wish is you'd like your spouse to lose 10 pounds. See, that's the difference between a goal and a wish there. I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. She goes, I still don't understand. I go, how do kids walk into the best teacher in your school's classroom? She goes, they are excited about learning. I said, how'd those kids leave home? She said, I don't have any idea. I said, how do they walk into your worst teacher's classroom? She goes, they're not very excited about learning. I said, how did they leave home? She said, I don't have any idea. How they leave home is a wish. How your teachers are and they walk into the classrooms is a goal that you have the ability to influence. I'm going to give you one more example, and I'm nervous about this. I've met some athletic directors, so I'm double nervous about this. Somehow or another, it's a big deal in places. And so it's a participation trophies. How many of y'all are familiar with participation trophies? Okay, listen to y'all moan. How many of y'all have heard it's the bane of the Western world? How many have heard it's the problem with everything in society today? Okay, how many are married to someone who talks about participation trophies? Okay, next time your goals, marry better. So anyhow, I work with college basketball coaches around the country. Didn't know if y'all knew that or not. Men's, women's, small school, large school, famous, infamous, whatever, and any coaches. And it's funny, I work with them on one thing. How do you get the players to try harder? I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. I can't do offense. I still hold a school record for wins in one of my schools, but it's only because nobody tall's moved into the community. It's, I don't know, offense or defense. It's just how do you get the players to try harder. If you've read any of my books, they're all the same thing, and I know you feel blessed if you've ordered 2. Do you know what my books are? How do you get people to do what it is you want them to do? Can I tell you a secret? That's all I know. Can I tell you another secret? That's all I need to know. The best teachers can get the kids to do anything, can't they? And the worst teachers can't get the kids to do anything, can they? And the best principals can get their teachers to do anything, and the worst principals can't get their teachers to do anything. And it's not power. We don't have power. Your superintendents don't have any power, and I'm not outing them. If they're good, they don't have power. If they're bad, they don't have power. But if they're good, they have influence. And if they're bad, they don't have influence. Best advice I ever got as a principal is you don't have to prove who's in charge. Everybody knows who's in charge. And the more you try to prove it, the more people try to prove you wrong, just like in the classroom. The best teacher in your school, how often does he or she try to prove who's in charge in that classroom? Never. Everybody knows it. The worst teacher in your school, how often does he or she try to prove who's in charge in that classroom? About 20 times an hour, and there's 25 kids pedaling as fast as they can to prove them wrong, don't they? It's just amazing. It's influence. It's not power. Anyway, I work with college basketball coaches, and I go out there, and how do you get the players to try hard? One of the most famous coaches in the country asked me to come out a couple years ago. He was having a struggling season, and he didn't have many struggling seasons. And I flew out there, and I go, what's the problem? He goes, I can't motivate the players. I go, why can't you motivate the players? He goes, because they've all gotten participation trophies. I'm just asking. How many have heard this? I'm just asking. How many have heard that? Maybe some of you said it. Never say it again. But I'm just wondering how many have heard it. I go, so these participation trophies are a big deal, aren't they? And he goes, yes, they are. Because kids don't earn anything anymore. When we were little, kids had to earn everything. How many of you have heard that? The kids had to earn everything. I said, I know what you mean. When I was 2 years old, I was not allowed to have supper until I mowed the neighbor's lawn. That's how I got the nickname No Toes Todd. That's where that came from. I didn't know if you were familiar with that or not. He goes, the problem is when we were little, if we got it at school, we got it twice as much at home. How many of you have heard that? Oh, I know. I said, I know exactly what you mean. Growing up, parents took care of everything. When I was growing up, we didn't have prisons. We didn't need them. Parents took care of everything. Charles Manson, family fixed it. I mean, that's what it was. That's what all this is. It just fixed it. How many of you grew up with troublemakers? Oh, so the parents didn't take care of everything. It's a stupid, ridiculous lie and an exaggeration cynics say so that they can blame things on society today. But somehow society today doesn't intercede in your best teacher's classroom, does it? Isn't that a miracle? How can that be? Anyhow, he goes, nobody earns anything. It's a trophy for you and a trophy for you and a trophy for you. I said, you know who else got participation trophies? He said, who? I go, the team that beat you last night. See, they all got participation trophies too, and they crushed you like a JV team. I was watching on ESPN. The announcers were mocking you. They were wondering if the game had passed you by, and I watched the game on TV. I said, it hasn't passed me by. And met you. I go, not only has the game passed you by, life's passed you by. You've decided to become a cynical, bitter old man. That's how come the players don't listen to you. It's no fun. You're no fun. I go, you know who else got participation trophies? He said, who? I said, the team beat you Wednesday. I watched that game too. I said, you know who else got participation trophies? He said, who? I said, the team you're playing Saturday night. See, they found solutions, you found excuses, and you talk to other coaches who find excuses so that you can blame everything else but yourself. Can I tell you a little secret? In every one of your schools, middle school, junior high, and high school, every one of your schools, your best teachers never talk about participation trophies. And your crummy teachers talk about stuff like that all the time. And you know who they talk to? Other crummy teachers who also want to have something to blame. And if the leader of the school ever mentions participation trophies, you've just handed an excuse to your worst teacher to carry forward for the rest of their career. How many would be willing to bet me money you could predict which teacher in your school will send the most kids to the office in the 2028-2029 school year? And is that because they get the most kids with participation trophies? Or is that because it's the worst teacher in the school that happens to be in that classroom every year? Folks, we've got to find real problems and solve them with real solutions. We found made-up problems that have no solutions. And then I can hang on to those problems. And I know some of you are hurt right now, but so what? Stop doing it to your school. Folks, you've got to give hope. Understand this. And I'm not a false positive guy. I think you can say that already. But understand this. I don't know if being negative solves problems. I mean, I don't know if being positive solves problems. I really don't. I don't know if being positive solves problems, but I know being negative doesn't. Your worst teacher, Frankie McYankee, is that solving any problems there in their class? And it can't come from you, because if it comes from you, it's forever. How many of you have at least one student? At least one, probably just one in your whole school. How many have at least one student that possibly might have been a little better off if they'd ever gotten a participation trophy? Going to the best, most well-rounded kid in your entire bedrooms, going to the best, most well-rounded kid in your entire school's bedroom. What's that bedroom full of? And the best, most well-rounded kid, what's it full of? Participation trophies. So can we shut up about that, please? Can we please shut up about that? Aren't you mad when you hear people talk about kitty litter in the classrooms? Right? That teachers are grooming kids? Doesn't that tick you off? How's this demonization of teachers working? Is that going pretty good there? And we have people in our school, demonization of students, don't we? And it can't be a leader, and that's so important. How many have at least one student that you think might be behind this year academically, socially, emotionally, or behaviorally? Is the problem with that kid they've gotten too many participation trophies? They've been loved too much? Is that the problem with the kids that misbehave? They've been catered too much? They've been cared for too much? I just read a study. I don't know if you all know this. You probably have already read the study, and you probably already shared it with your faculty. But anyhow, I read a study that shows children when they turn 5 years old, 5 years old, I don't think that's in any secondary schools, 5 years old, they know participation trophies don't mean anything. 5 years old, they know participation trophies don't mean anything. And we have adults that haven't figured that out yet. Let's just start looking for real problems and solving them with real solutions. Is that a fair deal? Okay. We got 2 ways to improve our schools. We only have 2 ways to improve our schools. We're only ever going to have 2 ways to improve our schools. Anything we do besides these 2 things, we're literally chasing our tail and wasting our time. The 2 ways we have to improve our schools are hire better teachers and improve the ones you got. Those are the 2 things that we can do to improve our schools. Where is it? Over here? Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we're going to focus on both these things. You got to hire better teachers, you got to improve the ones you got. But I want to share with you something here, because one of the things to improve the ones we got, I'm actually going to give you an example of this right now on hiring better teachers. How many of y'all ever been told to raise your test scores? Okay, how many of y'all been holding back on it? I mean, I'm asking random questions here. How many try to keep a little slack in the line when it comes to your test scores? How many of your test scores up as high as you know how to get them? Whose hand should be up? Everybody's. How many of y'all, what's interesting is, why on earth would I ever tell you to raise your test scores? Why wouldn't I teach you to raise your test scores? Why would I tell you? Why wouldn't I teach you? What do you know about me when I tell you to do something instead of teaching you? What do you know about me? I don't know how to do it. That's why I tell you instead of teaching you. Isn't that amazing? State departments, they're excellent at telling, not so excellent at teaching. It's amazing. Let's pretend the state of Virginia, I'm making this numbers up. I'm a research guy, but I didn't do any research on this. Let's pretend Virginia has 3 dysfunctional school districts and 8 dysfunctional schools. I'm making it up. Let's pretend that Virginia has 3 dysfunctional school districts and 8 dysfunctional schools. How many schools and districts should the State Department be dealing with? This isn't a math problem, it's repeat what I just said problem. How many schools and districts should they be dealing with? 3 and 8. How many do they deal with? Because it's easier. It's scary. That's called a blanket monkey. That means you throw it on everybody instead of just dealing with the one person you've been dealing with. And what happens is people tell you instead of teaching you. Well, I got a question for you here. I'm going to talk today about classroom management. You know how come I'm going to talk about classroom management? That's the easiest way to improve your school, easiest way to improve your teachers, easiest way to improve your life is classroom management. It's amazing. But the reason is, if you teach people how to be effective at classroom management, they don't push back. If you tell people to be effective at classroom management, they're going to push back because they don't know how. Every teacher in your school does the best they don't know how at classroom management. And you know how come I know that? Because classroom management is selfish. If any of us could get the kids to behave better, what would we do? We don't hold back on that. How many of you have children? If any of you could get your own children to behave better, what would you do? Get them to behave better because it benefits your favorite person in the family. You. That's exactly right, isn't it? And it's amazing. Instead, we tell people instead of teaching them, and we're going to start teaching them instead of telling them. It changes the world. And I want you to think about something. Which of these 2 things do you think you have the most ability to influence as a principal? Teach people to raise their test scores or teach people to manage their classrooms better? Which of those 2 do you think you have more ability to do? Manage their classroom. Okay, now show me with the thumb. If every one of your teachers was a master at classroom management, show me with your thumb, what would happen to test scores? If every teacher in your school was a master at classroom management, show me with your thumb what would happen with teacher morale. If every teacher in your school was a master at classroom management, show me what would happen with teacher retention. If every teacher in your school was a master at classroom management, show me what would happen with administrator morale. Why is that not our focus? I don't even understand. We're going to talk about hiring new teachers, hiring better teachers here real quick, and I'm going to give you an example of teaching versus telling. How many of y'all check references? Check references. Over 1/3 of the people that get hired in education, no one's ever checked a reference on. Didn't know if y'all knew that or not. And I say praise the Lord, because otherwise people like me don't get jobs. So I always remember that with a kindness in my heart. Okay. Did you know, does it take intelligence to check references? No. Okay, does it take skill to check references? Does it take effort to check references? Would you rather put effort into hiring or effort once they're hired? Effort into hiring, okay. Where's a principal in here that checks references? We have a principal. What's your first name? Chrissy? Okay. If I have somebody's resume that has 11 schools they've been at and they list 3 references, I call the 3 references and the 11 schools. I don't eliminate them. Why would I eliminate them arbitrarily? All this is a dang phone call. Okay? If I have somebody who's taught 17 years and they list where they student taught, and I call the place they student taught, because all I want is exceptional. There's plenty of average. You can have all the average you want. Take all the average. The kids in my school don't deserve average. I'm not going to hire average. I'm not going to settle for average. I'm not going to keep average. You can have it all. Fine with me. Because I care about your kids, but not as much as I care about my kids in my school. Because that's my job. So anyhow, I check references there. Chrissy's my friend here. Chrissy, do you have a guess, or we're going to ask the audience if we need to? The number one question people ask when they check references in any profession. Does anyone know the most common question we ask when we check references? Would you hire them again? What percent of the time do you think the answer is yes? 98? They could have posted a weird YouTube clip of them doing something horrific with a turtle, and it may have made that cutoff. I mean, that is really a bizarro thing. So if Chrissy, if I said, would you hire him again, most likely you'd say yes, right? Okay. So I had nothing wrong with a softball question because I got to make her feel comfortable. Would you hire him again? She says yes. Here's my next question. Would you recruit? Would you recruit him? Is that a completely different question than would you hire him again? Okay, let's say she says yes or no. It doesn't matter. I'm really quick. I'm not bragging. I'm really quick. But you know what? I'm a deep thinker more than I'm a quick thinker. You just think I'm quick because I've already thought of it. See, I already know what I'm going to say, so you think I'm really quick. But it's only because I already thought of it. It's not because I'm out quicking. I say, would you recruit him? She says yes. Okay? Or she says no. It does not matter. My questions are the same. That's the way it doesn't. That way I never get off our pattern. I say, would you recruit him? She tells me yes. Guess what my next question is? Okay? Do you think I'm going to ask you questions that everyone else knows, that everyone knows the answer to? Why? I'd be wasting your time. How many teachers do you have in your school? That's my next question. So, how many teachers do you have in your school? 150. Guess what my next question is? How many of them would you recruit? So, of your 150 teachers, how many of them would you recruit? 90. Okay, she's not real picky, but she's at least a little picky. Do you know the thing we don't know when we check references? Anything about the person we're asking. Is there a difference if she said 9 and 149? Now I know about her, and now that means something about the other person. But she said 90, okay? Doesn't matter. She could have said 3. She could have said 140. Doesn't matter. So she said she'd recruit them. She has 150 teachers, and she'd recruit 90. Am I correct about what you're saying? Okay. Anybody know what my next question is? Where do they fall in the 90? Is it the first teacher you'd recruit? The 20th teacher you'd recruit? The 40th teacher you'd recruit? Or the 90th teacher you'd recruit? Let's say she says 10th, but it doesn't matter what she says. Let's say she says 10th. Guess what my next question is? Why aren't they first? What keeps them from being first? What's the difference between them and the first? Am I asking you different questions than you've ever been asked in your life? How many of you, if you checked references on someone tomorrow, would ask different questions than you would have asked yesterday? Did I tell you to ask different questions? Oh, I taught you to ask different questions. And you're going to do it because it benefits who's your favorite person in the school? Great principles without exception at all levels, without exception. Almost all my books are research-based. I just take the research out because I think nobody will read them. Great principles without exception have faculty meetings teachers look forward to and value. Pretty quick self-check, isn't it? Great principles without exception. That means no exceptions. Great principles without exception have faculty meetings teachers look forward to and value. Average principles either don't have faculty meetings or people don't look forward to and value. And you know the minimum goal of every faculty meeting, minimum, is I want teachers to be more excited about teaching tomorrow than they were today. We suck the life out of people. And it isn't YouTube clips. And I think some of them are funny with cats. And it isn't cupcakes, and I like to snort frosting. Do you know what makes teachers more excited about teaching tomorrow than they were today? That you teach them something at the faculty meeting they can immediately implement into their practice because now they're ready to do that just like you're ready to check references. My central office friends, I know I met a few of you here, the central office friends. Do you know the minimum goal of every meeting you ever have with principals is you want principals to be more excited about principal and tomorrow than they were today? Why do we suck the life out of people? My principals, how many of you have ever gone to a meeting at central office, you wanted to take a letter opener and stick it in your thigh to make sure you were still alive? And you know one thing my central office people can do? Teach the principals how to call references and be more effective with it. And guess what month you're going to do that? April or May or June. Don't do it in August because they'll forget by June. It doesn't immediately provide a resource they need. That'd be like having new teachers and spending half a day on insurance. What a weird waste of time that would be in school districts. Oh man, that'd be cool. Well, I'm sorry, I apologize. Anyhow, and so does this make any sense? Okay, so we're going to teach people new ways to do things and better ways to do them. One other thing with new teachers. How many are going to have new teachers this year? Okay, how many of you assign mentors? What's the one word that determines how 99% of the schools, it's more than 99, I'm trying to round down to give you room to squeeze in and you can pretend you weren't one. In 99% of the schools, in Virginia, how are mentors assigned? Somebody said grade, somebody said subject. The word is convenience. I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. Who's at the same subject, same grade, same hallway, same passing time, same grade level, same gender, same sex, same race. They coach or don't coach. When I assign a mentor, I want you to think about this. This is how important this is. When I assign a mentor, what am I telling you I hope you become at the pinnacle of your career? So if I assign you a mentor, what am I telling you without telling you I hope you become at the pinnacle of your career? Who are the only people that should be mentors? You assign somebody average, they're shooting for average. They'll round down if they have to get to average. I don't even understand. Student teaching. Student teachers should only student teach with exemplary teachers. If you let somebody student teach with an average teacher, you average, not even crummy, average, you have ruined their career. Do you know where the people in your school that gripe in the teacher's lounge learned that? Oh, your school, probably from their mentor or their department, and nobody's ever taught them different. Teach people differently. My new principals here are new to a school. The most important event you will ever have is the first faculty meeting of the year, your first year. Teachers are on better behavior then than they're ever going to be at any other point in time, and it's the only chance you have to be undefeated. I'm just letting you know that. I hope someone at central office taught you that because you lost the opportunity if they didn't teach you that. But even if they didn't teach you that, the second most important event you will ever have is the first faculty meeting of the year, your second year. And the third most important event you'll ever have is the first faculty meeting of the year, your third year. Does this make any sense? And in schools, you do have a new opening every year. In most jobs, you don't have that. If you ran a bank, tell me when you're going to try to have a rally fest. Because Tuesday is just like Wednesday. But in a school, we start the year undefeated. In addition, teachers are trying harder at the first faculty meeting, mainly because there might be new teachers they're trying to impress. It's not really because of you, unless you're new, but it's just people they're going to try to impress. And the first time is the only time you get a chance to establish expectations versus correcting behaviors. I have a question for you. How many of y'all like to play games, card games, board games? How many like to play games? Okay. How many would like to know the rules? And when do you want to know the rules? Before the game starts. Unless you're a cheater, then you never want to know the rules, and you can always just play dumb. And you know what's really funny? Do you understand the first faculty meeting of the year is the only time you get a chance to provide the rules before the game starts? And it isn't rude. It's kind. It's nice. I'm going to use the word secretary because I'm from Missouri and I'm a hillbilly. Can I tell you something? If you're a new principal, did you know the secretary wants to know how you want him or her to answer the phone? Did you know that? If you're a new principal, the secretary, if you're a new principal to the school, the secretary wants to know how you want him or her to answer the phone. Did you know that? They want to know exactly how you want them to answer the phone until they answer the phone. Then they don't want to know how to answer the phone because now you're correcting behaviors instead of establishing expectations. Does that make any sense? And what's weird is the better the secretary is, the more they want to know. High achievers are completely driven. Their life is driven by guilt. And if that secretary is good or thinks they're good and either one of them's okay, guess who they want to impress? The new principal. And you know what they want to do? Better than they've ever had it done before. And you just teach them. You don't tell them, you teach them. And how do you get the secretary to answer the phone like you like? You know what you do? You walk into the new secretary the very first day and go, listen, I'm weird about lots of things. Lots of things you'll quickly know, plus the way I dress and smell. But anyhow, I have lots of things that I'm weird about. And one of them is answering the phone. I'm just weird about this. Because I think it's kind of neat if we could all answer the phone similarly. But I'm so wound up. I'm always afraid I'm going to go, your dime, start talking, and it's the superintendent. And so I even have a little thing I've written out that I sometimes keep next to my phone so that I can answer it correctly. And we've got 6 or 7 phones here, and we also have substitutes that come in or different people that are walking by. Would it be offensive if I kind of wrote that out and gave it to you and you could decide if you wanted to put it by the other phones or not? Would that be rude? The better they are, guess what they're thinking? I'd love it because I want to do it right. I don't want my teachers to call parents if they don't know what to say to call parents. Why do I want it to go wrong? Why do I want them to lose confidence? I don't understand this stuff. I'll give you another example here. Whole school assemblies. You ever have a whole school assemblies? The best teacher in a school, the best teacher in a school. This is a faculty meeting. Everything I do is a faculty meeting. It's funny, the way I'm talking to you, some of you all are going, oh. I talk to my faculty like this. And you know what? All the good people love it. Because you know what they're doing? They've been waiting their whole life for this. One of my guidelines is I teach my teacher, one of my schools I was at for 7 years. You know what I taught my school every year for 7 years? It's 10 days out of 10. It's every single day we treat every single student with respect and dignity 10 days out of 10. And 10 days out of 10 seems like a lot, doesn't it? I used to teach math. That's a frightening percentage. How many days out of 10 you want students treating you with respect and dignity? How many days out of 10 you want students coming to your class prepared, responsible, and ready to learn? And if we expect that out of our students 10 days out of 10, and we should, we'd better expect that out of ourselves 10 days out of 10. And there's 3 behaviors that should never take place in the school. 3 behaviors that should never take place on the practice field. 3 behaviors that should never take place at home. And the first of these 3 behaviors is we should never argue. Arguing with a student is like mud wrestling a pig. You both get muddy, only the pig sure seems to enjoy it. Who determines how many arguments you get in a week? You do. Right. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, talking to about 600 parents. I said, who determines how many arguments you get in a week? One mom raised her hand and said, my daughter. I said, I'm so glad you did not bring her with you tonight, because that is one powerful lady. Second thing is we never yell. The students we're tempted to yell at have been yelled at so dang much. Why do you think that's going to have any impact on them? I was terrible in school, terrible. One time I brought a grade card home, my dad was mad. My dad goes, Todd, all of your grades are horrible. I go, Dad, they're not all horrible. I got a B in reading. He goes, that's a D, you idiot. So anyhow, keep that in mind. Starting in first grade, when I could get a teacher yelling at me, guess what I'd tell all the other kids before we walked into class? Watch this. I've never said watch this in a great teacher's classroom because I couldn't push their button. Can I tell you a secret? The kids don't even know the great teacher has buttons because they never get to see them. How many of you work with at least one teacher, at least one, that the students don't know it's possible for that teacher to yell? How many of you work with at least one? The kids literally do not know it's possible for that teacher. How many of you work with at least one teacher that doesn't know it's possible not to yell? Until now. When am I sharing this with my teachers? When they're still undefeated. And we never use the single most commonly used classroom management technique in the United States. You want to know what the most commonly used classroom management technique in the United States? Sarcasm. Tell me when sarcasm's appropriate? Never. You talk to a teacher about being sarcastic, you know what they always say? I was only. You want to know the definition of sarcasm? Humiliating someone in front of their peers under the guise of humor. Folks, I got into education because of coaching. I work with professional coaches. I'm talking about athletic coaches. I got into education because of coaching. And you know what I've had to teach coaches? When the coach uses sarcasm, you know what they're announcing to the team? These are the kids you can pick on in the locker room. These are the kids that I don't care if they quit the team. You don't have to identify them. I'm going to go ahead and identify them for you right now. And do you know why everyone doesn't know this? Because somebody hired an assistant coach to work with an average coach, and then the average assistant become the coach, and of course they're going to do just like the average coach, just like student teaching, just like mentoring. That's how come we have to teach people how to do it right instead of doing it wrong. Does this make any sense? Did I offend anyone good by talking like that? And I'm kind. I don't have to prove who's in charge. Everybody knows who's in charge. I'm kind. Because I've got to talk to them like I want them to talk to the students. Whole school assemblies. This is a faculty meeting. Whole school assemblies. The best teacher in a school, the best teacher in a school, the best teacher in a school. The best teacher in a school takes their kids to an assembly. Who do they sit by? They sit by their kids. But they don't sit by their kids randomly. Which kids in particular do they sit by? The ones who might most enjoy conversing. Well, if you've read any of my books, I talk about superstars, backbones, and mediocres. And you know what I've learned? The dividing line isn't between backbones and mediocres. The dividing line is between superstars and everybody else. See, what's interesting, superstars and backbones both sit by the challenging kids. Superstars do it right, backbones do it wrong. And if you don't teach people, the backbones will continue to do it wrong, but they'll think they're right because they student taught with someone average. And you know what's interesting is, your crummy people don't sit by the kids, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But what's interesting is, the best teachers and average teachers both sit by the challenging kids. One of them does it in revenge mode, one of them does it in prevention mode. You know how the average teacher sits by Marcus? Marcus, you're going to sit by me at this assembly, and you're going to sit by me at every assembly the rest of the year. Because of your behavior, you're going to sit right next to me at this revenge. Everything's rearview mirror for average people. Everything is rearview mirror. The great teachers, everything, we pretend it's random. Everything just happens randomly. We just pretend it's random. It's amazing. The great teacher walks their kids down to the assembly. They stop. The kids start walking in. When do they turn and walk in? When who walks by? You only know one kid's name, so guess the one kid or it's going to slow this whole process down. Who walks by? Marcus. Marcus! We get to sit by each other again. This is the third assembly in a row. I remember the last one, the birds of prey. Ever since then, every night I dream, they swoop down and just took you away. That's what they do, swoop down. I don't share that part. I filter that out. But anyway, that's what we do. Ineffective people, and I ask my faculty this at the first faculty meeting of the year because we're still undefeated. Ineffective people, what do they do at assemblies? I let the teachers answer. What do they do? Stand against the wall, not even go in there, sit with other teachers, grade papers, text on their phone, not even go in there. And you know how come they don't go in there? Because they're a new teacher and their mentor told them we don't go in there. And if they do sit with kids, which kids are the farthest away? The kids that are most likely to disrupt them. What do they do at the end of the assembly? Complain about the kids' behavior. I don't even understand this. But I say one more thing to my teachers. How many of you think at times, I think it is, but how many of you think at times managing your class at an assembly can be hard? I think it can be hard. How many of you think managing 2 classes at an assembly can be overwhelming? Folks, our jobs are hard on the best day. There's no easy in education. Our jobs are overwhelming on the worst day. Please don't do that to your colleagues. Our jobs are hard enough. Let's not dump on our colleagues because we're not taking our responsibility correct. Have I offended anyone? What are the good people sitting there doing? Where have you been my whole life, principal? And I do it before the assembly. And I'm kind and I'm nice because I have to sort out the people that aren't doing right. Are they ignorant or insubordinate? And we almost always think they're insubordinate and they're almost always ignorant. And ignorant doesn't mean stupid. It might, but it doesn't mean stupid. It means they don't know a better way. Do all my teachers know a better way now? And can I tell you a secret? If you have 12 teachers that stand against the wall and you do this at the first faculty meeting of the year, you'll be down to 4. And I can teach you exactly what to do with the 4. But I don't want you to have to do it with 12. Let people self-correct first. Does this make any sense? Okay. Yelling. Ask your teachers this. How many of you, when you were a student yourself, and back in K-12, when you were a student yourself, some of you it was a couple years ago, some of you it was actually last century. So anyhow, and I'm older than you are, so don't take that personal. I'm so old, when I was in school, we didn't have current events. We called it, we didn't have history. We called it current events. We really did. We called the French-Indian War the big one. But anyhow, how many of you, when you were in school yourself, the kids all knew which teacher was the yeller? How many of you think in our current school, the kids know which teacher's the yeller? How many of you realize the teachers know which teacher's the yeller? How many of you got into education because you wanted to be known as the yeller? How many of you didn't know your colleagues all knew you were the yeller? But this year, we're all undefeated. You know, to not be the yeller, not be known as the yeller, all you have to do is just stop yelling. That's really all you can do. There's nothing we can do about last year. We started this year undefeated. Do you see the first faculty meeting of the year tone? And what's really weird, when I say we don't argue, we don't yell, we don't use sarcasm, you're probably thinking I'm talking to the people who argue, yell, and use sarcasm. You're wrong. You know who I'm talking to? The high achievers. because they compare themselves to perfection, and they start to lose confidence more than anyone else. And you know what happens with the high achievers when they hear we don't argue, we don't yell, we don't use sarcasm? You know what they're doing? I knew that was right, I knew that was right, I knew that was right, and they're full speed ahead. Folks, how many of you have heard of people who say they have imposter syndrome? Do you know how come high achievers always are going to have imposter syndrome? Because they compare themselves to perfection. You know how come average people don't have imposter syndrome? Because they compare you to perfection. And if you compare yourself to perfection, you're always going to be leaving it short, aren't you? And you got to understand that. High achievers aren't driven by confidence. They're driven by insecurity because they compare themselves to perfection. Your worst teachers have so much confidence, it's unbelievable. It truly is. Your worst teacher has so much confidence, they can go ahead and teach even when none of the kids are paying attention. I mean, it doesn't interfere with them at all, does it? But your best teachers need which kids paying attention? All of them. When they're not, who's the great teacher think the problem is? And who's the crummy teacher think the problem is? The kids, see? That's how come. It just lets them all, the participation trophies, the kids, that's what it is. Okay, so we're going to talk about teaching our teachers. Does this make any sense? Does this frame your first faculty meeting any? And you see how kind, your best teacher lays out expectations and they do it really kind. Your jackasses are the ones acting like this. Aren't they? Whether they're on the football field or whether they're in the classroom. You don't have to, anyhow. Okay, I'm going to share with you something here. We're going to teach our teachers better ways to do it, and we're going to start with a simple one here. We're going to teach them this. You are the filter. You know what that means? You're in charge of what comes out of your mouth and what doesn't. Didn't know if y'all knew that or not. You're the filter. When people say, how's your day going? Did you know you have a choice in how to respond? I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. When people say to me, how's your day going? Do you know what I say? Great. How are you? Do you know why I say great? Because it doesn't help you for me not to say great. That's it. It's not toxic positivity. You know who talks about toxic positivity? Toxic negative people. Because they don't like it that you're happy because they hate their life. I mean, understand this. You got a troubled parent, Mrs. Smith, in your office. You can't get her out of your dang office. You finally get a crowbar and you wedge her out of your office. You walk out in the hallway and a teacher goes, hey, how's your day going? Do you know what you say? Great, how are you? How does that help anybody for you to go, oh, that Mrs. Smith, that Mrs. Smith? Every kid who has a kid, every teacher who has a kid named Smith is now scared to death. Every teacher who has a kid named Smythe is now scared to death, just in case you mispronounce the last name. And every teacher who has a kid who has a step-parent, and the step-parent's last name is different than the kid's, and they know the step-parent's last name is now scared to death, just in case there's any chance the step-parent's last name is. When the principal sneezes, the whole school catches a cold. When a teacher sneezes, the whole class catches a cold. When food service sneezes, bring your lunch. Those are 3 things that you need to be able to remember there. Got a math problem for you. Where are my math fans? Oh, I love math. What, there's 3 kinds of people in this world, those who love math and those who don't? Anyhow, that's a math joke for non-math teachers. But I got a math joke for my math teachers. This is a Todd Whitaker original. I went to the University of Missouri, became a math teacher. My oldest daughter, Catherine, went to the University of Missouri, and she became a math teacher. And now I know why there's no math teachers. It's really hard to become a math teacher. It's way harder now than it was when I went through school. In order to teach math, my daughter had to take 8 classes above Calculus 3 in order to teach math. And one of the classes she had to take was called matrix theory. I didn't even know matrix theory was a math class. I thought matrix theory was a study of why Keanu Reeves can't act. Anyhow, listen to you all moaning. The people that were moaning quote matrix theory and everybody hates them for it, so stop it. I'm your friend, I'm trying to help you out, and drop the participation trophy talk too. Those 2 things, it's amazing. I think that's a pretty funny joke if you've seen the movie The Matrix. Anyhow, I don't understand it. I don't even get it. I'm too dumb. Plus, I think Keanu Reeves can't act in general. So anyhow, that was just it there. So anyhow, okay. Math problem. Great teacher has 25 students. Repeat back, how many students does a great teacher have in this fictional situation? Great teacher has 25 students. A great teacher is in a bad mood. I'm going to count to 3 and tell me how many people in the classroom know it, and the answer is a number. Great teacher has 25 students. A great teacher's in a bad mood. How many people in the classroom know it? Okay, I'm going to count to 3. I haven't counted to 3 yet. The non-math people, hold on. I'm going to count to 3, and then I want you to yell out the answer. Okay, everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. 0 is incorrect. 25 is incorrect. 26 is incorrect. The answer is 1, the teacher. And you know what the teacher does? Filters it out from everybody else. A negative teacher is in a bad mood. How many people in the school know it? Everybody. And it's not because you notice, it's because they announce it. How many of you work with people who use their mood as a weapon? Isn't that amazing? Class, do not try me today. Do not try me today. I'm in a bad mood. I said I'm in a bad mood. How many of you work with at least one person that when they come back this August, you're afraid to ask them how their summer was? Not because there was a tragedy, because they are a tragedy. Every weekend, every holiday, always something negative. I teach my teachers this in advance so they realize they're the ones doing it. See, I need them to know, and it allows everybody else to feel stronger in dealing with them. Every weekend, how was your holiday? How was your vacation? How was your weekend? And they go, stomach flu. Coming out of both ends. I'm like, oh my lamb. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I have never told anyone I've ever had the stomach flu. I've never felt the need to share that with anyone. I haven't. I consider it a jump start to a diet. I just leave that to myself. I asked somebody after Christmas last year. I didn't want to ask them, not this year, the year before. I didn't want to ask them, but it was a holiday, so I felt guilty. So I had to ask how their Christmas was. I didn't want to, but I felt guilty. Isn't it funny how I texted a whole bunch of people this year at Christmas. I go, please tell all of your lovely family members Merry Christmas for me. And since it's the holidays, tell all the other ones also. Anyhow, I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was kind of funny. And so anyhow, I went to a Rolling Stones concert, and I go, if Mick Jagger, I tweeted this, if Mick Jagger is not the world's handsomest man, then apparently someone else is. So anyhow, that was it there. So I saw one of those people there after Christmas last year. I go, hey, how was your Christmas? And they go, Southwest Airlines canceled so many flights. I go, I am so sorry. Where did you get stranded? I didn't fly, but I mean, Southwest Airlines canceled so many flights. I go, where'd you learn that? They go, Facebook. I go, so you went to Southwest Airlines' Facebook page? No, I go to a guy who posts gas prices every day. How many of you know people that post gas prices? What is wrong with those people? I'm glad they post gas prices, because what's the one product we have no way of knowing how much it is before we pull into the store? Gas stations, that's the only one we do know. And they post Southern California's from 7 years ago. These aren't people who hate their life. They're people who hate your life, or they wouldn't post them. Think about that. Holy mackerel. And some of them work in our school. And you know what we better do? We better teach people. You ever work with anyone negative that threatens to quit? Negative, somebody negative that threatens to quit, and people talk them out of it. We ain't that much of a teacher shortage. I mean, so understand that. How many of you have at least two people, if they left, you'd be better off leaving the dang position vacant? You know what I mean? Let's keep that in mind. And here's what negative people always threaten to do all the time. You know what? I might just quit and go become a greeter at... May not be true in Virginia, but it was true in Idaho last week, but I wasn't in the skinny part there either, so keep that in mind. And you know what people go, I might go quit and go be a greeter at Walmart. You know what I always teach them? There's no way. I mean, they will never hire you. I mean, their standards are low, but they're not that low. Oh, you're thinking of their standards for customers. Walmart has no standards for customers. You ever question that? Just Google, what do Walmart customers wear? You look at those pictures, and you know what comes to mind? Apparently, fishnet's back. I mean, I never knew it went out of style. You ought to see my tan. So it's teaching people how to do it. You know one thing about great teachers? They have different paths and the exact same goal every time. Folks, and it isn't relationships. It's a learning relationship that we have to establish. This isn't a dinner party. It's a school year. Nothing wrong with asking a kid about their dog. At some point, it becomes their puppy, but at some point, it becomes a dog, and they're tired of you asking. It's a learning. Isn't that the core of all your best teachers? The learning relationship. Some of them are friendly, some of them aren't, but they all teach highly effectively and engage the kids. It isn't just greeting. It's more than that. If you have a dinner party and you're worried if it's going to be fun, invite me. I'm not kidding. It'll be the funnest, except for the grammar, dinner party you've ever had. It will. After 90 minutes, my act gets old, but I'm just letting you know that. If I was single, do you know what my strength would be? Speed dating. Seriously, in the first 2 minutes, you think that's the greatest catch I ever met in my life, but after 37 years, I literally have broken my wife's spirit to live. I mean, so understand this. It is way more than, it's a learning relationship. How many of you went to a college that had some large lectures? How many went to a college that had some? How many had at least one really good large lecture? What was your relationship? Learning relationship. You felt like you were connected with that person because they were so good. How many of you have kids, cousins, nieces that are Swifties? Take them to a concert. They leave the concert, and who do they think is their best friend? Taylor Swift. Because of her. They don't feel that way when you go to other things. It's because of her. Don't your best teachers, isn't that exactly what they do? And that's so important. It's like greeting kids. I think we need to greet kids, but it means different things for different people. Some of them do, is it daps or dabs? What are the things, is it daps or dabs? What's it called? B or D? B. Dabs. Do dabs. You've seen that on the thing where they do that and have a different one for it? I couldn't do it. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I can't even tell my 3 kids apart. And somehow they do it. But do you know the person who does that could be good or crummy? We don't have the slightest idea, even though it's fun and entertaining. But your best teachers greet every kid. Some of them do that. You know what some of them do? Just make eye contact and smile. You know what some of them do? Greet them at the door and call their name. You know what some of them do? Within the first 3 minutes, walk around and make some kind of contact, some kind of relationship, some kind of something with everybody, even while class is going on. But they all make the relationships. And somehow or another, that's the key. And your ineffective people don't ever make the relationships. If I do any of these handshakes and I'm a loser in the classroom, it doesn't mean anything. The kids don't even want to shake my hand. And it's teaching your teachers this. But I'm going to share with you something. I wrote a 3rd edition of What Great Teachers Do Differently because this is the single biggest difference maker I've ever seen in classroom management, home management, and personal life management. And I'm going to share it with you. I wrote a 3rd edition of a book just for one concept, and I have literally never done this. My girls and I present a lot together. My girls we wrote your first year book together, and we wrote a classroom management, because my girls are classroom management machines. They look like identical twins, and their personalities are completely different. My daughter, Madeline, is just like me, and I'm very sorry for her. I got up this morning, I lifted weights, swam 100 laps in the pool, and I don't drink caffeine, and this is me. It's really sad. Do you know why I work every day? I work out every day? Because my goal is to have less Todd. The world will be better off with less Todd. I'm just letting you know that. Madeline is just like me. Catherine's blood pressure's 4. I am not kidding. Her blood pressure is 4. You could do anything and she wouldn't flinch no matter what it was that happened. They're the 2 best classroom managers in the school, in their schools, and they're the 2 most popular teachers in their schools. And I wrote books with them and present with them because I wanted to know what is it they do differently than all the other teachers in the school when their personalities are so different. Does this make any sense? We also present together a lot, which used to be fun. It was really fun presenting with them. Now they're so good they present by themselves. But now when we present together, it's hurtful because they're so good. I feel like when I present with them, honestly, all I am is eye candy. And so anyhow, my wife always goes, trust me, you ain't no eye candy. So anyhow, we have 3 emotional modes. Research shows that children, when they turn 2, are for sure 3 years old, they have 3 emotional modes. You're not going to believe this, but those emotional modes are business, parent, child. The reason I'm sharing this is teachers, research shows, have 3 emotional modes. Does anyone have any guess what the teacher's emotional modes are? Business, parent, child. Excellent. The reason this is so important is the mode of the teacher determines the mode of the students. If a teacher's in their business mode, guess what mode the students go into? 1 out of 3. I really need you to try on this one. If a teacher goes into their business mode, guess what mode the students go into? Business. If a teacher goes into their parent mode, guess what mode the students go into? Child. And if a teacher goes into their child mode, guess what 2 modes students go into? Parent and child. 99% of the time, we want students in what mode? Business. So 99% of the time, we have to be in what mode? Business. Teacher teaches this. Business mode is kind, it's polite, it's respectful. You have a meeting at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, businesses. You know how they start the meeting? Welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. Would anyone like anything to eat or drink before we get started? The technology's set up, the agenda's ready, we're going to have a great day. How do your best teachers start the school year? How do they start every day? Welcome. Isn't that exactly the same thing? It's amazing. It's exactly the same thing. How many of you have ever heard you have to earn kids' respect? That is literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, and we repeat it all the time. We're around so much average people that we start to think average is right. What are kids like the first day of school? Oh, respectful. I thought you had to earn that. Oh, you don't have to earn it. It's a gift. Guess what your teachers have respectful kids the first day? All of them is the correct answer. I don't know if these questions are hard. This is going to be a long day for you. A long conference. All of them. And you know what's weird? All of the kids, all the teachers have respectful kids the first day. Some of them it continues to nurture and grow the whole year, doesn't it? And some of them by the second week it starts to diminish. But they all have it. My girls do Twitter chats all the time. Your first year is the hashtag. They do Twitter chats. And people go, what do you do the first day of school? And all over the world, people will go, I do scavenger hunts. I do getting to know you activities. Ask my daughter, Catherine, who teaches the lowest of the low inner city kids in Kansas City, freshman math. They come from 3 high schools to her. 100% free and reduced lunch. That's what she loves. They go, what do you do the first day of school? Do you know what she said? She goes, I teach math. She goes, I got all year to build relationships. I've got to help the kids understand they can all be successful mathematicians from the day they walk in the door, because many of them feel like they've struggled in terms of academics. In addition, in our class, we all say please and thank you. We call each other ladies and gentlemen. Only one of us talks at a time. We always raise our hand. How we transition to and from each of our other classes. How we move and get the math manipulatives. She goes, I got all year to build relationships. My daughter Madeline, 3rd grade. They go, when do you do getting to know you activities with your 3rd graders? You know what she said? Last 20 minutes of the 2nd Friday of the year. She goes, I got a year to build relationships. I got to help the kids understand that in this class we say please and thank you. We call each other ladies and gentlemen. How we walk, that we don't bump into desks and injure ourselves or hurt each other's property. That when we come in, we immediately start on the bell ringer. How we move to the reading rug, how we transition to and from our specials. She goes, I got all year to build relationships. We don't have to prove who's in charge. Nobody knows who's in charge. And isn't this exactly what the kids want? Exactly what they want. Somebody is really good at piano. Or else I have Jerry Lee Lewis in my head. I don't know which of the two it is here. I learned this my first year as a math teacher, basketball coach. I just think I'm funny. I really do. No one in my family thinks I'm funny. No one in my family. The other day I went to the doctor. The doctor said he wants me to increase my intake of fish oil. I said, I think I'm going to scale back. Last night I got to the hotel at a decent time, but I had a horrible night's sleep, horrible night's sleep. The whole night I dreamed I was eating a muffler from a car. A muffler from a car. I woke up this morning, I was exhausted. Anyhow, all day I'm thinking, what funny joke can I tell my basketball team, because I am funny. I tell them a joke. What mode am I in when I tell my basketball team at the start of practice a joke? What mode am I in? 1 out of 3, what mode is that? I tell them a joke. What mode is that? Child. What mode did I just put them in? Now I'm ready to switch to practice, so what mode do I go to? What mode do kids not have the ability to instantly switch to? That's what happens. Do you know the best teachers in a school, and I realize you're secondary, the best elementary teachers in a school have their Valentine's Day party in business mode? You can literally hear them talking. Class, as you know, today is Valentine's Day. And we've been planning this for several weeks. And as you know, St. Valentine's Day is named after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago. Maybe they don't put that in there. They might just filter that out, I'm not sure. Anyhow, as you know, we've all been working on our Valentine's Day mailboxes, and we brought in shoe boxes. And look, they're all lined up alphabetically in the wall, and isn't every one of those precious? And what we're going to do is we're going to go 2 at a time. And we each of us have 24 Valentines because we don't want to leave any of our friends out. Isn't that exactly how they do it? And you know what's weird? Isn't that how your best secondary people do it too? My daughter Madeline taught 3rd grade, and she had this little, what's the thing, like wind chimes? And to get kids' attention, she barely brushed the wind chimes, and those kids were riveted like soldiers. My daughter went to 8th grade the next year. She goes, what the heck? I took the wind chime. And they barely touch them, and the kids are riveted like soldiers. My daughter Catherine at the high school, lowest of the low, barely puts her wind chimes up because Madeline did it at 8th grade. Wouldn't work in a crummy teacher's classroom, would it? They'd be ringing that thing, and they'd have a gong after a while because they do everything wrong. That's how come. It's just they do everything wrong. How many of you, once again, how many of you have children, want to have children, or were a child? Okay. How many can think of a time, past, present, or future, where you might possibly want one of your children to clean their room? You would like them to clean their room in what mode? And you're frustrated because they're in what mode? And the average parent in Virginia goes into what mode? That's why it doesn't work, because kids hate you till they're 20. You cannot parent or child mode anyone into business mode. The only way to get them in business mode is business mode. Arguing's not business mode. Yelling's not business mode. Sarcasm's not business mode. Okay? Here are my 3 daughters. Stunningly attractive, clearly adopted because they're too good looking. My daughter here, what's your first name? Tanya. I'd like her to clean her room. I'm frustrated because she's in what mode? And I want her in what mode? And I go into what mode? Parent. Tanya, I've told you at least a dozen times. And anytime a parent or teacher says, I've told you at least a dozen times, you know what I think? That is one slow learner. She's riveted in child mode. You're going, it doesn't matter. She was already in child mode. Right. You know what happens when a teacher goes into child mode? All 24 kids in the class go into child mode. That's what happens. You know what happens when the football coach goes into child mode? All the kids who weren't even doing anything wrong go into child mode. That's what happens. See, what happened is, it isn't that she's in child mode. She was already in child mode. Her 2 sisters. One of them goes into child mode, because I was either in parent or child mode, and many times you can't tell the difference, which should scare us to death. She goes into child mode. You know what child mode means to me? She mocks me behind my back. You know what else it means? She mocks her sister to her face. But I went into child mode, so her other sister went into parent mode. And you know what parent mode means for her sister? Mother hen. I'll help you clean your room. No, you won't. You just... And that is the story of our lives. By the way, if you have a spouse, partner, or both, if you're nervy, you don't have to raise your hand. Spouse, partner, or both. If you have another adult that lives in your home, could be your mom, could be your sister, could be your brother, could be your husband, could be your wife, could be your partner, does not matter. If you have another adult that lives in your home, and you decide you want to go into business mode with your child, the other adult either also has to go into business mode or get out of the house. Because the kid hangs on to the adult's mode. It does not hang on to their peers' mode, despite what your ineffective teachers think. So pretend it's mom and dad, and I'm the dad, and I go, you need to clean your room by 5 o'clock today or you can't go out on Friday. You see, that's business mode. You need to clean your room by 5. Mom overhears this, and mom comes up and goes, oh, honey, I'll help you clean your room. What mode is she guaranteed she's in? Child. Switch it. Mom says you need to clean your room by 5 o'clock today or you can't go out Friday night. And dad's behind going, can't go out Friday night, gonna miss a party. What mode is she in? Child, riveted. One other little thing. If you have a partner, spouse, mother, daughter, father, son, teacher, student, principal, teacher, any two people, if either one of the two are in business mode, you will never argue. Personal life. Spouse, partner. If either one of the two people are in business mode, you will never argue. And let's just pretend it's a spouse or partner. One of you not arguing is a goal. The other of you not arguing is a wish. But if you reach your goal, you'll get your wish. First day of school, you have 25 kids in class, 24 normal kids and me. You do not want me. I am Jimmy Jack around, worst kid. I guarantee you don't have a worse kid than me in the school. Guarantee it. 24 kids in class, 24 normal kids and me. The 24 normal kids start out in what mode? Business. And Jimmy the Jack around starts out in what mode? And guess what mode the Jack around kid wants the other kids in? Do you know why I want the other kids in child mode? This is how life works from 3 to 103. Do you know why I want the other kids in child mode? Because a pretty girl thinks I'm funnier when she's in child mode when I'm in child mode. Because the cool guy thinks I'm cooler when he's in child mode when I'm in child mode. That's it. That's how life works from 3 to 103. I want the pretty girl in child mode because she thinks I'm funnier when she's in child mode, and the cool guy thinks I'm cooler when he's in child mode. I can't get him in child mode. I got a really strong personality. I can't get him in child mode. I need one other person in the classroom's help. Does anyone know whose help I need? The teacher. And show me with your finger, not that finger, show me with your finger how many times I need their help. One time. One time I need them to go into child mode or parent mode inappropriately. One time, especially in the first month of the year. Todd, that is it. I've had They're mad I'm not looking at them. You know why I'm not looking at them? Because I don't care about them. I needed them to get those kids in child mode. And I'm looking at them, and the pretty girl's going into child mode, and the cool guy, and it's click, 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 click. Next day, I'm funnier. I'm never going out of child mode in that teacher's class because they put me in child mode and they put all of them in child mode. Does this make any sense? So you're wondering, how do I get Todd into business mode? Isn't that the hard part? You know how you get me in business mode? Keep the other kids in business mode. That's it. Because in your class, not in the hallway, not in passing time, not at lunch, in your class, if the pretty girl is always in business mode, what mode do I have to go into in your class to impress her? Business mode. And in your class, if the cool guy, not in the locker room, not in the hallway, not in passing time, not on a party on Friday night, in your class, if the cool guy is always in business mode, what mode do I have to go in to impress him? That's how life works. That's how life's always worked. You're going to teach your teachers this, and it's the adult in the room. And some of the teachers go, no, it's the kids. It's the kids who set that tone. I can't do anything because of the kids. Wrong again. And I'm going to teach you how come. Follow any kid around in your school, valedictorian, salutatorian, troublemaker, nice kid. Follow any kid around. They switch modes as they walk into the room. Can you picture it? They switch based on the teacher. And somebody go, no, it's the kids. You're wrong. Please quit saying that. They do it based on the teacher. And you ever wonder how come? Kid goes into your best teacher's classroom. Every time they go in the best teacher's classroom, what mode do they switch to? Business. They walk in business mode. They walk in, and you know who's there? Last minute loser sub. You ever had a last minute loser sub? And that kid walks in, and the troublemaker walks in, and they're in business mode because it's a normal teacher, and it's a last minute loser sub. What mode are they in instantly? And what mode are they putting everybody else in? Because they're pushing that loser sub's button, aren't they? And the next day, the great teacher's back, and what mode are they in? Teach your teachers this. Business mode the snot out of them. I've never seen anything change classrooms. Now, if you want to share this with your teachers, guess what faculty meeting you ought to share this with your teachers? Because see, if they do this, they won't hammer Marcus taking them to the assembly, because that's not business mode. They don't understand it. But I have one more question for you. How many of you reflected on a time you may have chosen a mode that wasn't the best mode? Did I ask you to reflect? Did I tell you to reflect? That's how come you include the families. Because your worst teachers can easily shrug off all the kids. Kids nowadays, parents don't do anything. Participation trophies. Can't you just hear them saying that? You can't shrug off your home, your family, your personal life. You can't do it. That's how come you have to. Does this make any sense? Okay, got one other thing I'm going to tell you. I know we're out of time. I want you to do me one favor this year. One favor. I want you to go into your best teacher's classroom when they need it, not when you need it. Now, you both may need it the same day. You ever had a Tuesday that was the longest month of the year? You all know what I'm talking about here. I want you to go into your best teacher's classroom when they need it, not when you need it, when they need it. And I want you to leave one note. The one note says, I was sitting down in the office and I forgot what school was. And I wanted to come down into your classroom so that I could remember what school was. Thanks for being here for all the students. And thanks for being here for me. How many of you have never received a note that nice in your life and you married someone? Folks, we treat teachers special because they are special. Somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, how do principals take care of the students? And you know what I said? I don't have the slightest idea. I just know how principals take care of the teachers. And then I know how teachers take care of the students. They are our school. Culture of an organization is oftentimes determined by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. And tolerate doesn't mean act tough. Tolerate means don't accept. And the best way to get it not accepted is to lay it out as an expectation at the very start of the year. Is this helpful at all? Does this make any sense? Do me a selfish favor and stand up real quick. Selfish favor and stand up. This is totally selfish. I'm going to count to 3, and when I count to 3, I want you to throw your hands up in the air and yell hallelujah. Okay, so I'm going to count to 3, and when I count to 3, I want you to throw your hands up in the air and yell hallelujah. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, hallelujah. 1, 2, 3, hallelujah. 1, 2, 3, hallelujah. You can sit back down. I got to explain real quick why I did this. My wife's always worried about me because she knows I am a lost cause in life and never knows what I'll do. And I'm going to call her as soon as I'm done. And she's going to ask me stuff like, did you say hickey? I go, I didn't hear. I did with the elementary group, but I didn't hear with you all. She's going to say, did you say thunderbutt? I go, not till the end. Anyhow, she's always worried about me. And then she's going to go, how'd things go there in Virginia Beach? And I'm going to say, honey, I ain't saying they went well. But those dang people were standing up, throwing their hands in the air and yelling hallelujah. So I appreciate you all doing that for me. Anytime, Todd Whitaker's nobody. Anytime I can help you, give me a holler. Anytime. That's all I want to do. Yesterday I was outside in the lawn for like 3 hours because I couldn't do it in my room. It wouldn't have a phone connection, returning calls. I hear from people every day. Every day. Folks, if you're on the side of the kids, I'm on the side of you. What you do is so important. I always say during times, people always look to leaders, but during times of crisis, they stare. And you've decided you want to make a difference in the world. You want to make a difference in people's lives. You've decided to become an education, and you've decided to lead. The best thing about being an educator is it matters. You know the hardest thing about being an educator? It matters every day, and most other jobs don't matter any days, much less every day. Teaching is the most isolated profession, which is weird because you're never alone. And leadership is a very isolated program. The difference is instead of alone, sometimes you're also lonely. If I can ever help you, give me a holler anytime. Challenging people, challenging teachers, improving your school, first faculty meeting of the year. Call me or email me anytime you want. My website's toddwhitaker.com. I don't have any people. On Twitter, I'm at Todd Whitaker. On Instagram, I'm at Todd Whitaker1. I don't want you to be alone or lonely. You have experts here. I'm not usurping, but you know, sometimes it'd be nice to get that neutral outsider's perspective. Our job is not to reflect society. Our job is to cultivate society. Thanks for what you do. Have a wonderful conference. It's been an honor to have a chance to work with you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And as a special surprise from the association, at each meal, the silverware is yours to keep. So I think that's a little party.
It's plastic white. Thanks for Todd. Let's give it to Todd again one more time. Hopefully, you'll remember the 3 modes. And then also my takeaway was 3 things you didn't want to have or see in schools or classrooms. Who remembers what they are? Don't do what? Argue with kids. Don't use sarcasm, and don't yell at kids. All right, let's take those home.